Okay guys, so here is our satin stitch. We are going to still pull an arm length of floss. You're still going to split it, tie it off at the end. Let me find my needle. This is never a good sign when you can't find your needle, which is why we have the needle mender, which you can't even see, can you? That was a good sponsored ad, right? Okay, so thread your needle. All right, so when doing the satin stitch, I prefer to start in the middle and then work to the left or right and then come back and do the other side. That way it just helps keep your lines straight, because if you start here, you're gonna start kind of accidentally curving over. Another thing with doing satin stitches for all of these is that you want to make sure that you are kind of picking a direction. You don't want all your lines to be straight for every single hill, because they just won't create dimension. So for example, let me get my pen. For example, if you want this hill to kind of go this direction, and then this one go this direction, this one go straight up and down, so that type of thing. That way they're all kind of going in slightly different directions to help add just more dimension. And it's helpful to even draw your arrows on there, because then you know, it reminds you where you're going. Okay, so start at the top. You're always going to come up from the top and bring your stitch down to the bottom. That way you're not, if you notice when you make your stitch, sometimes whenever you come up and go somewhere, it pulls the floss a little bit that direction. So if you're going from top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom, you're not going to get the perfectly straight lines that you want. So always start here at the top and then come down. And I'm going to do mine just like this arrow, bring it a little bit to the side, and then you're going to bring it down at the bottom. Okay, now bring your needle back up at the top. Now my finger back here is kind of holding there's the knot obviously in the back. I'm kind of using my finger to kind of pull that aside so that I can put my needle just right on top of that previous stitch. Not literally right on top. They're very close. They're hugging. They're cuddling. And then, so I came up at the top. I'm going to go back down at the bottom, right next to that other stitch. Don't share holes, because then you're going to start making your piece go all wonky. We don't want that. We want nice straight lines. So up at the top, down at the bottom. And if you feel like maybe you accidentally didn't make your stitches close enough, you can either fill it in, or you can remove your stitch by just getting your needle or your finger, pulling it out, and you can say, that's not quite as close as I wanted it to be. So even coming back here and pulling that out, and that way you can just do it again. It's pretty easy with a satin stitch to remove a stitch and redo it, unlike French knots, which maybe there's a way to remove a French knot. I don't know, other than cutting it out. I cannot think of a way to remove one. But hey, maybe one of y'all has a secret that you can share with me. Please do, because that's kind of my least favorite thing about French knots, is there's no good way to remove them. Okay, now, so if you keep doing this and you realize, oh, I am kind of starting to go a little bit crooked and I don't want to undo everything, just kind of fix your mistake by going either farther to the left or farther to the right. So say, for example, I notice I'm kind of starting to lean, like my stitches are going this direction instead of this direction. You see how I'm using the needle to be the stitch. So if it's going like this way, you might want to pull your stitch over just a little bit for a few stitches and try and get it back on track. I hope that made sense. Okay. So you're going to do this just all the way to the end. And then that will be your satin stitch. If you really want, if you feel like you don't like the outlines down here, you could do an outline on top once you're done. I would do the satin stitch first and then maybe do an outline on the edge, but it's not necessary. So as a reminder, when you're done, cut your extra floss, split it in two, or 3 in 1. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. I feel like that's my, if you can't tell, I'm not a perfectionist. So yeah, 2 and 2, make a knot and double knot it. And then cut down as close to the knot as you can. Okay, and a quick side note that the 2 strands that you saved, if I can find my 2 strands, the 2 strands that you saved, you want to reuse these. When I do another arm length and I pull 2 away, that means I have 2 2s, and you can just put them together, knot them like you would any other floss, and just go on with your day, and save yourself some floss, which is great, instead of just pulling the 2 apart and tossing it, because that would be super wasteful. So hopefully you like this alternative way. If you don't, go with the French knots. I think both are going to look really pretty. I think I'll try and do this and show y'all for a few days, and see how the whole thing looks together. So I'll report back, I suppose.